Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. When it comes to personal finance, I think one of the things you learn over time is that there really is a heavy emphasis on the personal aspect of it. When it comes to an income necessary to cover expenses and hit savings goals, it depends on a lot of different things like where you live, what your family dynamics are, things like that. When it comes to how much do you need for retirement, it varies wildly based on what your goals are. Where do you want to live? What kind of retirement do you want to have? What activities do you want to do? Again, so many other factors. Ultimately, what I try to do with my videos is to provide some general guidance or some generalized financial education that hopefully better equips you to make better financial decisions for yourself. But at the end of the day, the best you can do when you're preparing anything for the masses is some generalizations, because there's really no specific tip that you can give that will work perfectly for everyone in every scenario. So everything kind of has to be taken with a grain of salt. With that said, one often cited personal finance rule is that you should strive to save at least 20% of your income. Now, I know I've said this rule. I think it's a perfectly fine rule, but as with everything, a 20% savings rate may not work in all circumstances. A 20% savings rate is based off a traditional working career. If you start saving 20% of your income and do that for 37 years, you should have a nest egg built up enough to provide you an income similar to what you had during your working years. So retirement kind of becomes a seamless transition, as far as your income is concerned at least. Depending on where you're at in life, saving 20% of your income might be incredibly difficult, if not impossible. Or perhaps saving 20% of your income is incredibly easy and you can save more. Your income and your expenses are going to vary throughout your life. It's completely normal. So maybe instead we could look at 20% as an average savings rate over your entire working career. When you're young and just getting started in your career, your income might be on the lower side of the spectrum, but generally so too are your expenses at that point in life. But then a few years go by, you get a few pay increases, your income increases, but maybe you're ready to settle down. You buy a home, you have some kids, now your expenses have increased. Kids are notoriously expensive. But then more years go by. You continue climbing that corporate ladder, you continue increasing your income, your kids become self-sufficient, so you have a higher income and now your expenses have reduced. Now, as I said in the opening of this video, this doesn't describe everyone's situation. Of course it can't. But this is a pretty traditional path. So it is the example that I am going to use for this video to help describe how your savings rate can fluctuate over time. So rather than assume our worker saves a flat 20% every single year throughout their working years, we're going to assume at some points they save a little more and at others they save a little less and see what their retirement will look like. Let's assume we have a worker who starts out at the age of 20 with the goal of working 40 years and retiring at the age of 60. This worker has a starting salary of $40,000 and gets a 3% raise every single year. This means at 30, their salary would be about $54,000, at 40, $72,000, at 50, $97,000, and in their final year of work at the age of 60, their income would be about $130,000. Quick little note here, there's going to be a lot of numbers that go into these calculations, so I'm going to have to do some rounding, I'm going to have to do some lopping off. And also in this first example, we're going to assume that the worker is contributing to a traditional 401k, so that way I don't have to factor in taxes. For the first 10 years of our investor's working career, I'm going to assume that he hits that 20% savings rate. He's fresh out of school, he's living below his means, because if you live like you're broke in your 20s, no one's going to question you. After 10 years of our investor investing 20% of his pay, our worker will have roughly $140,000. 10 years into our investor's working career, he turns 30, and 30 is a big year. He's a newlywed, he bought his first home, he had his first kiddo. I'm using 30 as an example because men tend to have their first kid around the age of 30. I'll also assume that this gentleman has 2 kiddos because the typical American has 1.9 kids, and I'm gonna assume people are not cutting up babies, so we're gonna say that he has 2 kids when he's in his 30s. Yes, in our example, we are only looking at one income. We're not doing a combined household income, but every household does have different incomes. With this investor, he is still getting his 3% pay increases, but life just got more expensive. Now he has to pay for daycare and he's got to foot the bill of a bigger house. So now in his 30s, he can really only afford to save, say, 5% of his income. And we'll say he does that for the next 10 years. Well, after another 10 years of only contributing 5% of his pay during that time, his investments would grow to roughly $360,000. Not too shabby. Our investor hits 40 with a pretty impressive net worth. At 40, his kids no longer need daycare, so that's great, but life is still kind of expensive. Yes, he's getting his pay increases, but now he wants to splurge on the occasional family vacation, and he wants to allocate some dollars towards his kids' college funds because he doesn't want them to have too much student loan debt, and maybe he and his family upgrade their house. He can still afford to save, but he can't hit that target rate of 20%. Now he's saving 10% of his income. Another 10 years pass. This time our investor saves 10% of his income and his nest egg grows to about $927,000 by the time he hits his 50th birthday. Which means our investor is almost a millionaire. Not too shabby. At this point, his income is about $97,000 a year. His kids have moved out of the house. They're on to college and pursuing their own careers. And now he can truly see and feel his own retirement coming up because now it's only 10 years away. Remember, he wants to retire at 60. So now he buckles down and he saves 25% of his income for the next 10 years. Another 10 years pass, he charges hard, saving 25% of his income, and his investments grow to almost $2.5 million. Using the rule of 4%, that would provide an income of about $100,000 a year. At the age of 60, our investor's income was $130,000. But remember, he was contributing 25% pre-tax to investments. So really, he was living off $97,500. But you do have to take taxes out of that. But remember, you're going to have to take taxes out of his investment income too. So this means that he could pretty seamlessly slip into retirement. Overall, during his entire working career, his savings rate averaged just 15%. Now, just because if I don't include taxes, some people are going to get a little testy. So if our exact same investor made all of his contribution percentages just post-tax, say he contributed to a Roth instead, he would have ended up with roughly $2 million. This would give him an income of $80,000 per year, but that's post-tax. Now, of course, none of these numbers actually factor in Social Security. So once our investor becomes eligible for Social Security, his income would actually increase. There are some pretty big assumptions that all of these figures hinge on, and the biggest one being that our worker gets that annual 3% increase in pay. Yes, many workers do get regular increases in pay. Some get 3%, some get more, some get less. Some don't get regular pay increases, but rather get pay increases when they jump from job to job. A huge percentage of our population never become six-figure earners. In fact, as of December of 2021, only 5.4% of workers are six-figure earners. So what would happen if our investor started out making $40,000, worked his way up to making $60,000, but then his pay sort of leveled off? We'll use the exact same percentage contributions to retirement accounts, but we are going to also stick with being pre-tax because quite honestly, it's easier. This time, our investor ends up with just over $2 million. In this example, much of the outcome really depended on our investor getting invested early. I am a huge proponent of people investing as early as possible. It puts a lot of gas in the tank, so to speak. If you can get your money early invested, let compounding interest do its magic, that's the best way to do it. And if you live like you're broke in your 20s, no one's gonna judge you. But not everyone hits a 20% savings rate in their 20s. So let's do one more set of calculations. This time, our investor in his 20s saves just 10% of his income. In his 30s, still that 5%. In his 40s, 10%, and then buckles down hard in his 50s and again saves 25%. Again, we are doing all these numbers pre-tax. In this first example, our investor still perpetually gets that 3% raise. In this case, our investor would retire with $1.7 million. However, if his wage topped off at $60,000, the investor would retire with around $1.4 million. Again, not a terrible position to be in, and it does put him in a situation that's better than many Americans. The moral of the story is that you can save a lesser percentage. 20% is nice, but save what you can. Start investing early, invest often, invest when you can, and invest as much as you can. The point is to get invested and let compounding work its magic. What really worked in favor of our investor is that he had a 40-year time horizon. You want to keep your money invested as long as possible. The longer the time horizon, the better. There are many times in life where life is very expensive. Perhaps when you get married, when you buy a house, when you have a kid. Save 5%, save whatever percentage you can. Up the percentage when you can, but save whenever you can. Those dollars you invest when you are young are the most powerful dollars you have. Don't have the attitude of, oh, I can't save 20%, so I just won't save anything. That's the attitude that'll screw you over. What kind of percentage are you guys striving to save? Leave it in the comments down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you soon. Bye.